Hello, welcome to the video where we will be going over Reddit's top 50 fantasy series. It's my favorite ranking list that they put out online. It's wonderful, it's a yearly thing, and it's a cool little benchmark for the channel for me to keep doing. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this list after one more announcement I almost just forgot. For the Europeans out there who have been commenting that the Amazon affiliate link has not been working for you, I'm sorry. I'm trying to look into how it make it work. Apparently for some Europeans it's working and others not. For all Americans it's working, so hashtag America 1776, yeah! But I am, trust me, looking into it. I'm gonna try to get it working, but as of right now, I don't really know what to do. If anyone out there has any idea, let me know in the comments down below. And if you'd like to support the channel and buy any of the books that I talk about here or reviewed, link for the Amazon affiliate link down below. Purchase the book, costs you nothing extra, supports the channel. Thank you. Let's jump into Reddit's top 50 fantasy books. This list has way more. I think it's like 129 ranking. We're going to be going from 50 down because I don't want this to be an hour-long video. That's just not good for anybody. And starting at number 50, we have The Wandering Inn, Uprooted, Tangina, and Warbreaker. The only one there I have read is Warbreaker, so I'm going to go ahead and say yay, awesome. I really do like Brandon Sanderson's Warbreaker. I actually defend it as one of his better books. I know some people don't like it as much, but hey, we should fight to the death sometime. And we're gonna quickly move on to burn through some of the 40s here because I got a lot to say about this list. I actually haven't seen the end of it yet. I kind of just saw it was out, and but I always have a lot to say about this list. So we're gonna move on. World of the Five Gods, The Library at Mount Chard, The Expanse, r/fantasy mods. I love you guys. Really, you're one of the best communities out there, and you've always allowed me to be in your community, and I enjoy the conversations that you encourage. Really, my one criticism, please stop putting sci-fi in your fantasy list. As someone who loosely talks about fantasy and sci-fi, I get it, I do. But if you're doing a top fantasy list, something that is hard sci-fi should not be on this list. I don't know how you can enforce this, and if you can't, I get it, no worries, it's fine, much respect. But maybe try to filter that out in the future. That's just my thought on that. The Emperor's Soul. I'm surprised to see this on this list. So if you look here on the left, we have its ranking, we have the number of votes, and its increase or decrease in position. So -16, this one dropped 16, 49, this one went up 49 spots. Wow, Brandon Sanderson, holy crap, the Emperor's Soul just got way more popular. Actually, with the number of votes, maybe not. That's pretty much within the margin of error when the votes are this low. But I'm personally surprised to see Emperor's Soul above Warbreaker. Most of the time, if someone's read Warbreaker, they've read Emperor's Soul, and most of the people I talk to about it prefer Warbreaker, so I don't know entirely why that happened, but interesting. The Lions of Al-Rasan, the Rift War cycle, nice, like seeing some older fantasy have strong positioning on this list, although it is falling popularity apparently. Boo. Chronicles of Narnia, I'm not a fan, and apparently less and less people are, although I would say that's within the margin of error as well. Arcana Ascension, American Gods Universe, -6. I'm a little sad to see that. I like American Gods because of how different it feels. It kind of does feel like a left turn for fantasy in a lot of ways, closer to what like Dark Tower is doing. So I enjoy fantasy that's willing to pull out and be a bit different, but I get it's not for everybody. And on a fantasy list where you have fantasy fans, that kind of stuff isn't going to thrive. So it's impressive to see it this high regardless. Old Kingdom, Hainish Cycle, The Dark Tower, -6 for Dark Tower. I'm sad, to be honest. I like Dark Tower quite a bit. The further in the series I've gotten, the more I have liked it. But again, it's more of the alternate kind of fantasy stuff, so I get how in this kind of list this series wouldn't thrive, perhaps. Although the community here is so embracing of like outside weird fantasy in my experience. Maybe that's not the reason. Maybe it's just the fact that, it's getting older. Witcher, okay, this is a big surprise. It's down 9 to 37, which means that's a pretty significant drop. Maybe the margin of error here, I'm not sure. I need to stop throwing that term around when I haven't done the math to know what the margin of error here is, and I'm not going to. But I expected a huge increase for Witcher, to be perfectly honest, because its TV show is coming out, and its games are still fairly popular and talked about positively, and there's starting to be some marketing for it. So that's legitimately surprising. Maybe it's because more people have heard about the lawsuit in detail and how the author wasn't entirely in the right, and there's kind of two sides to that story, more so than just the author's always right, which a lot of people do like to buy into. This is probably, if anything, I was going to chalk up to an anomaly of just a weird, significant amount of people forgetting to put it on its list. I would say Witcher is that, because the show, in my opinion, should be drastically increasing hype. I've even seen more people just in general talking about the series recently. I'll look up the Google Trends later and put it right here and see if we can see if there's a downturn in popularity recently through Google, but I don't know. I don't know. Cradle, The Divine Cities, Kulshi's Legacy, Earthsea. I've only read one book from Earthsea, but wow, that's cool to see it this high up. I liked it quite a bit. It is falling, but it's aging and it's not being adapted or pushed in a significant way, so that's kind of to be expected at this point. Good Omens, neat, up 20, which is pretty impressive. The combination of Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett is obviously spectacular. I have a review for the book on my channel. Just put in Daniel Green Good Omens if you want to go see it. Probably not one of my better reviews, but hey, I liked it. I thought the TV show was fine. I didn't do a review for it because I didn't have a lot to say about it, to be honest. My review of it is fine. Good adaptation of source material, though it didn't knock my socks off. The Black Company, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm conflicted about that. I love Hitchhikers. It's one of my favorite stories ever, but again, not entirely fantasy. Gods of Blood and Powder. It's cool to see that so high because I am in the middle of starting it, so this is standing out to me as pretty significant because I want to get further into that series, so neat. I'm neat. Neatarooskies. Neatarooskies. The Goblin Emperor, Wayfarer, The Band, Hyperion Cantos, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, Book of the Ancestors, Red Rising. I'm starting it right now. I'm actually about 15% into the first book. Definitely not fantasy. Worm, Lightbringer. Hey! I'm very happy to see Brent Weeks' Lightbringer this high. It's in my top 10, but I haven't read every book on this list, so maybe if I had, it'd be number 20 for me as well. But seeing it go up 4, and now we're in the point where that's pretty significant, and be represented well, I'm excited about that. Brent Weeks, good job. I'm excited for the last book.
Go pre-order it through my Amazon affiliate link down in the description.
If you're American. Broken Empire World, His Dark Materials, up 4. I will chalk that up to the adaptation coming down the road because the trailer's out, a lot of stuff. That one is being pushed, so I would say that might be why it's more in people's heads. Oh, and there is more books coming out in the His Dark Materials world. I forgot about that. There is that. That exists indeed. Dune, not a fan, and I always get more downvotes on videos where I mention that. But again, not fantasy. Book of the Babel, the Dresden Files. Wow, I did not expect Dresden Files to be so high. I like Dresden. Don't get me wrong. Dresden's cool. But this high on the list is a shocker. I would think in a list like this, it would be a lot harder to be in the top 15 if you weren't epic fantasy. But hey, who am I to judge what people vote? I personally would have put Dresden Files this high in my top 20, so I'm happy. Broken Earth, I'll be finishing that before too long, and if the whole story is as good as the first book, I get why it's so high. Rieria, Malazan, Book of the Fallen. Before you comment, Daniel, read Malazan. I'm gonna get to it again. I just need to get the section of my life I'll need to put aside to read it in order first. Okay? Okay. Realm of the Elderlings, Discworld, need to give that another try. Gentlemen Bastards. I like seeing Gentlemen Bastards so high. Gentlemen Bastards is absolutely spectacular. Link to buy it in my Amazon affiliate description. I'm going to stop that now. It's one of the best fantasy stories ever told. I would agree with it being in top 10, and it is in my top 5, I believe. Gentlemen Bastards is rock solid, and I cannot wait to read the last book. And the fact that the author's done makes me just so giddy. Harry Potter, the popular vote comes through. First Law. This is why I like the r/fantasy community here. Yeah, Harry Potter should and is high. I have no problem with that. But First Law above it, because these guys know what they're talking about. First Law by Joe Abercrombie is arguably the best grimdark fantasy story being told. I like it slightly more in A Song of Ice and Fire, fight me about it. But this just to me is why this community should be listened to. If you want to go to a place where you're looking for recommendations, I would go to r/fantasy because these people have read their stuff. They know what to recommend. I'm kissing ass right now is what it sounds like, but I'm being sincere. Kingkiller Chronicles, I regret being so harsh on the first book. I wish I'd been harsher on the second book. Not for me. I get why people love it. Let's move on and not start that conversation. Brandon Sanderson, Mistborn, tied in votes for Kingkiller Chronicles. Kingkiller went down 2 spots, Mistborn up 1. With Brandon Sanderson's just ever rising crescendo of popularity, I get why he's still just rising. I think in every entry you've seen Brandon have in this list, he's rising, so that makes sense. And Mistborn deserves this spot. It's amazing. I wish they had separated out Era 1 and 2, but hey. And with 126 votes and going up, I actually suspect next year we're going to see even more Brandon stories, even closer to the top, because he's putting out content consistently. He seems like a good guy, and we haven't seen adaptations announced yet, but I would be flabbergasted. That's the word I'm going to use. If within the next year he had not signed some deal to either get a video game or a movie or a TV show made for one of his stories, because wow, they are super adaptable. His magic systems are so technical, they beg to be in a video game, basically. At number 4, Wheel of Time. And what's significant here is that is up 7 spots from last year. And I'd like to think I had maybe a slight part to do with this, because I get a lot of comments from people telling me that they started Wheel of Time because of me, so yay, cool. But more likely and realistically, this is because the TV show is coming down the road. We're getting a lot of hype there. And the Wheel of Time community itself has kind of been like promoting and building itself up, honestly. If you look on Twitter of Time or even just the Facebook groups, this is a community that's ever kind of marketing and growing through its just natural interactions within fantasy-dom. And it's an amazing story that more and more people are going to get through and finish. So I think all these things come together to keep pushing it up the list, and it's another one that I'd be surprised, if the show is successful, that next year or the year after we wouldn't see it even higher. We have A Song of Ice and Fire down 2 votes. That is surprising. That maybe this has to do with people not being able to disconnect their anger towards the show from the books. I don't know. But with the last book not even being out, this is an ongoing series. I'm just surprised to see it down 2, and with the number of votes that this actually is at this high of ranking, I think that's outside margin of error, and it seems like it actually might be going down a little bit. Probably it's people not being able to fully disconnect their anger from the show from the anger towards the books. I don't know. That's my theory. Feel free to prove me wrong. Although I've heard some people say they're just not happy with the later books as well. I don't know. The Middle-earth universe at number 2, and it did not change position. Only 3 didn't change position in the top 10, Gentleman Bastards, Discworld, and the Middle-earth universe. So there you have it. A lot of people, they immediately discount this list as invalid when they hear that, Tolkien's not number 1. I get why they think and feel that way, but that's not how I feel about this. I have immense respect for Tolkien, and I credit him for the modern state of fantasy. End of story. But this is a list that's taking a pulse of the current state of fantasy and what people are putting in their top. And one, that's amazing that this book that is so old, nearly closer to a century old than not, is still on this list at all, let alone a ranking so high. So I think this is the right amount of respect for it. And at number 1, we have the Stormlight Archive, which had a big jump in popularity, up 3 positions. Wow. So jumped from number 4 to 1 in this list. I'm seriously impressed by that. A series that is not even close to being finished, so a lot of people would argue it shouldn't even be on the list if it's not even close to being finished, and didn't even have an entry put out between the last list and now, at least I don't think. Of all the current series that are having entries put in them, I can agree with this. I can understand why this would be number 1. In terms of popularity and quality, it's reigning king. I think there are a couple fantasy series that are technically better and match my taste a little closer, but I'm not going to disagree with someone who's going to put Stormlight Archive in their most enjoyable fantasy series of all time. So that is my reaction to this r/fantasy top list. Link in the description if you want to go check out the list yourself. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace.